Hi guys, attempting to do a video to help you review the grammar items that we talked about last week. So clauses are very important when understanding how to arrange and punctuate your sentences. So we are only starting with the very first part of this. It gets way more complicated. So page 9 of your study sheets are going to be very helpful, and we are going to start focusing on the subordinating conjunctions. So those are the ones at the top of the sheet. So you need to get very familiar with those. We will later talk about the other ones, but right now we're just going to focus on the subordinating conjunctions. The most important thing to know about a clause is that it has to have a subject and a verb. Then that clause can either be independent or dependent. Independent means that it can stand by itself and that it has no subordinating conjunction. A dependent clause, same thing, still has a subject and verb, but it starts with a subordinating conjunction. And you don't want to confuse those subordinating conjunctions with prepositions. That will be something that we talk about later, but it has to do with whether you actually have a subject or a verb or not. If we were doing this in class, we would label our sentences a little bit differently, but we are doing this online. But one of the processes that you need to think about as you're labeling your sentences is you want to make sure that you actually have a subject and a verb before you start labeling independent or dependent. That'll keep you from making mistakes, especially when prepositional phrases come into the mix. So we did the first few sentences last week, and really what we want to do here is that's our subject, that's our verb. If you are not familiar with verbs, then there is a page. If you flip back in your study sheets, you should be able to find verbs and kind of give yourself hopefully a quick review of verbs. But then in our second clause here, we have another subject, we have another verb. So this means that we have two clauses. I like to draw a line, and that helps me know, okay, we have two clauses. Okay, then we always want a conjunction that joins our clauses, because if we don't have a conjunction that joins our clauses, we actually have an error called a run-on. So luckily here the sentence is correct because we do have the conjunction that joins those clauses. So then I want to go back and decide, okay, do I have independent or dependent clauses? So no subordinating conjunctions, that means this clause is independent. We do have a subordinating conjunction here, that means our clause is dependent. Okay, when you're thinking about commas, our commas determine a lot of times where we put our clauses. So when in this sentence, when it's in this order, so independent, dependent, it's actually going to be no comma most of the time. There are some exceptions to that, but we will talk about it later because it does get a little bit complicated. So as of right now, if we have independent, then a dependent clause, that's going to be no comma. All right, if our sentences were in this order, dependent and then independent, we do add a comma at the end of our first clause. We are not going to see this yet, but later we will see sentences where we actually have two independent clauses together, and if we do, then we do add a comma there as well, and it will be before the coordinating conjunction. So back to number 2, which we did together as well. We first want to label, and so we've got subject, verb, verb, then subject, verb. So we have two clauses in this sentence. Draw a line there to show that we've got two. Okay, our first clause starts with a subordinating conjunction. Again, really want to make sure that you're referring to that list, which is in alphabetical order, to make sure that you're locating your subordinating conjunctions. So this first clause is dependent. Our second clause is independent. So then that means we do add a comma. And when I'm writing this, I actually like to circle the comma, and that way everybody can see it. But if we're doing it online, you just want to find your best way to kind of label your sentences so that you know what's going on. Okay, we're going to go ahead and move on to number 3. So we've got Sue helped, Maria thanked. Then, so that means we've got 2 clauses. There is our subordinating conjunction. That means this clause is dependent. This clause is independent. So then if we look over here, or we took our little notes, that means that we do need to add a comma here. Okay, number 4, I'm going to go ahead and warn you, is mixing things up. Okay, so this time, if you go to label number 4, we only have 1 subject and 1 verb. So we actually only have 1 clause. We do not have 2 clauses. Okay, if we look at after, just in number 3, we said, ooh, after was a subordinating conjunction. In number 4, however, it is actually a preposition. So later we will focus more on that because that is where it gets confusing. So this is a preposition. Therefore, we do not have a subordinating conjunction. That we just have 1 clause that is independent. Now, we don't need a comma in this sentence based on clauses, but we do need a comma based on a different rule that has nothing to do with clauses, and it's if you start a sentence with a prepositional phrase, you do add a comma. So we're adding a comma, but it has nothing to do with clauses. Hey, you actually cannot have a dependent clause by itself. That is an error. Okay, so the only clause that can be by itself is an independent clause. A dependent clause has to come with an independent clause. Okay, we're going to move on to number 5. So we've got I as a subject, put is the verb. We only have 1 subject and 1 verb, so we just have 1 clause. We don't have a subordinating conjunction, so it's just 1 independent clause, and we don't need to add a comma. Okay, number 6 is going back to the ones that are very similar to what we started with. So we've got I saw, subject and verb. I did do, subject and verb. So we do have 2 clauses, and we have a subordinating conjunction. It's because. Then this clause is dependent, this clause is independent, so that means we do have a comma. Hey, hopefully this video has helped you at least get started, so you should kind of be able to do these next ones on your own, and I'll take questions. Number 9 is a little bit weird, so I'm going to go ahead and help you out with number 9. Number 9 actually has a subject here and 2 verbs, but these 2 verbs go together. So this one actually only has 1 independent clause. And so you don't need a comma. So hopefully you guys can do the rest of these on your own, and hopefully this video helped you. And I'll give you more instructions later. Bye.